All right, hi guys. So welcome to the session on performance management and tracking from Actioneering 3.0. And let's start. So we'll start with a bit of expectations first of all. So this is going to be a very theoretical or very content-heavy session. So it's especially important that you pay a lot of attention here, because if you look away for a bit, you might miss something important. So make sure you are paying your fullest attention here. And as always, ask questions, but if you can, save them until the end of the session. And also during this session, we will be sharing with you guys or showing you guys the trackers that we use inside the EB. So you can take those and see what kind of good inputs you can take from that and try to create your own trackers using that. And also for performance management, we will also be showing you what we use inside the executive board. And I recommend that you guys create your own performance management systems after this as well. And then of course, evaluate your performance so far. You guys have been in, or the TS at least have been in their positions for at least 2 months now. So it's high time that you start evaluating your own performance. And then also create your own trackers or like team trackers within your team. And last but not least, make sure that whenever you're taking decisions inside this organization, that you back it up with data. You don't just make decisions just for the sake of making decisions, just going to a gut feeling or anything like that. Make sure you go with proper data. Throughout this session, what I want you guys to keep in mind is that basically this quote: "What measures, what's measured improves." What this basically means is that if you do something but you don't track the outcome or track the results that you're getting from that action or project that you're doing, it doesn't make any sense, because you can be just doing something and at the end of the project you will find out that you have been a complete failure. So it's important that throughout whatever you're doing, you keep measuring, you keep analyzing what you're doing, so they can identify mainly whether you are succeeding or not, and if you are not doing that well, the reasons for that and how you can improve further on. So I want you guys to keep this particular quote in mind throughout the session. All right, so first of all, we are going with performance management, which is basically divided into three different sections, which is measuring, analyzing, and then finally reporting. Right, so first of all, we'll go with measuring. I'm pretty sure you guys know what the standard definition of measuring is. So basically, in any kind of performance management system, the first thing that you should do is decide what you want to measure and how you're going to measure it. So for example, you identify what you want to measure. And yeah, so the example that we can take within the ISEC context is approvals. Like for say OGV or IGV, the number of approvals that we get, that's something we can measure. And then next, you're supposed to find out where you're going to get that data from. So in ISEC, we use Expert, but depending on the project you're doing, it can be a different source, or externally outside of ISEC, it can be a lot of different sources. And then you're supposed to collect the data and store them in one location, so then you can later go back, analyze them and manipulate them and get the kind of results or insights that you are looking for. Right. So I'm sure most of you guys have seen this. This is the Expert Analytics dashboard. So using this, you can get any kind of data you want related to ISEC exchange numbers. So what I have done here right now is the approvals from every single product that we are running, that is IGV, IGT, IGE, OGV, and OGT for our current term. So you can see the entire numbers from all the LCs and expansions within Sri Lanka. Right. So this is the source of data that we use inside ISEC to track our exchange numbers. And next up, this is a sheet that we use inside the EB to store our exchange numbers. So as you can see, we track the numbers every week to see how we are performing. So you can, I'm not sure if you guys can read the screen, but if you can, the first column is the number or the numbers that we did for IGV in the week of starting December 16th in 2019. Like this, there's a bunch of rows, and each row contains data of the numbers that we did, and along, not just our numbers, but the numbers of the entirety of ISEC Sri Lanka as well. Right, cool. Then moving on, next up is analyzing. So when you're analyzing data, it's important that you can't just take data and analyze it on its own. You have to compare it against something else. So some examples of what you can compare it with is your competitors. So in the ISEC context, your competitors would be the other LCs, or if you're competing against another team within the same LC, that would be your other teams, that would be your competitors. And also you can compare your performance against historical data. That is how much you did last year, how much you did last month, or even how much you did last week. And you can compare these two numbers and see whether you're doing well or whether you're doing badly. Good. And then next up in analyzing is you're supposed to develop or come up with a system that you can use to make sure to understand whether you're performing well or not performing well. Yes, and then using this, you can identify your strong points and your weak points. And a very powerful tool that you can use to do this, but a lot of people do not know is Google Sheets or even Excel. Excel has Google Sheets has a lot of features that you can use to do very complicated kind of analysis. So that takes a while to learn, but I recommend you guys learn it because it's not just relevant inside ISEC. When we're doing any other project or any other research or anything that you're doing, these kind of data analysis becomes very important for you. Cool. And this is the dashboard that we use for analyzing our performance numbers within the executive board. So right now, what you see is the IGV performance from the beginning of the term until the week starting March 30th. So as you can see, all the numbers of our entity compared to the other LCs can be seen. So as you can see, in applied, we are number one in ISEC Sri Lanka. And yeah, so there's a very, not a very complicated, but a basic algorithm that can be used to calculate the score. That's the system that we have come up with to determine our performance. And so what you can do is you can use this data or compare this data against other data and see how well you are doing. So as an example, we can say that our applications are good. That means our IGV, IR network is good, and our marketing, IR marketing is very good. That's an insight we can take away from this. But let's say, for example, in IGV, we are not converting a lot of applies into acceptances. We, out of 160 applicants, we are only converting 45 into acceptances. But on the other hand, Colombo South or CS is converting 147 applicants into 57 acceptances. So here you can understand that there is a bottleneck in our system where we are not properly converting applications into acceptances. So that's something we as an LC can work on. Like that's a problem that we can identify and see what kind of solutions we can come up for that. Yes, cool. And then finally, it's the reporting. So whenever you analyze data, it's important that you report it to someone. So it can be your teammates or even your superiors or the people above you. So that because if you don't share the data, you won't be getting a lot of insights out of it. So what's important is that you are very honest with your reporting and that you don't lie just to make yourself look good. You show true actual data and yeah, you become 100% honest with your reporting. And you can use charts and graphs and other kind of colors and everything to make your reports look good and very easy to understand. Right, so this is a report like similar to the earlier one that we use within the executive board. So this is a report that I generate every week and send to our board. And this is basically function by function our performance for a given period of time. So as you can see, we have a score of 0.89 for IGV, 6.9 for OGV, 7.4 for IGT, 5.8 for OGT, and 1.0 for IGE. So using this also, we can see how our products are performing. So if I can identify there's a particular function that's not working well, I can talk to that relevant VP and try to understand why and try to come up with a solution for that. And also, as you can see, the overall score is basically like a summary or an aggregation of all the products. And you can see that ISEC in Colombo Central right now is number one in ISEC Sri Lanka. And so IGE also we are number one, IGV we are number two. So like that, we can get proper insights and data out of this that you can use when you're making decisions. All right. And then also you can use graphs like this. So you can see these kind of data can tell you a story. For example, you can see we had decent number of so this is a graph of OGV signups that we are getting through our online or through physical campaigns. You can see that we are getting close to around 100 in the beginning of March and end of February. But right as the COVID outbreak started to affect Sri Lanka really badly, you can see the numbers had a huge drop. So yeah, like this data can tell you a story. You can understand that something went wrong just by looking at the data. Cool. And then next up is the team management, which is divided into two sections, tracking and then meetings. The tracking part will be done by myself, and meetings, some days you'll take over for a little bit in that section. All right. So first of all, before we get to tracking and meetings, it's important to take a note of a few things that's important when you're managing a team. So this is especially going to the team leaders who I think should know briefly about how they can manage a team. But these are some extra tips that you can use to enhance your leadership, I'd say. All right. So first one is you have to make sure that every single member in your team has a proper JD, that is a job description. You can't just give a person, you can't just put a person out there and tell them to do something. You have to give them a proper JD that they can understand and that they can use to analyze themselves as well. Right. That's the first and probably the most important thing. And the next one is identify each of your members' personal strengths and weaknesses and make sure you work around them. So if you see someone in your team has very strong IT skills, you can give him or her the opportunity to work in your tech related stuff, things like that. And if you understand that person in your team is not good at, let's say, public speaking, you can keep him or her away from those kind of situations and put someone who is strong and in those situations up front. All right. And then also understand that not every person is the same. They will have issues. They can be issues from home or academic issues. They may have exams these days, things like that. So understand these issues and try to plan for them ahead and work around them. So for example, if someone cannot stay after 6 p.m. inside university because they live far away and have to go home, you make sure you take your meetings before that time, things like that. All right. And then also you cannot manage every member in your team the same way. So you need to change your style depending on the person. So they can be different, like personalities. So an example I would say is there would be some people that do not want to be bothered. They just want a task and they will come back to you when they are finished the task. But on the other hand, there might be people who want you to push them and give them feedback over and over again until the task is completed. So understand that different people have different needs and work around that. And also very important to give your feedback to the people. Don't just always give positive feedback like it's good, it's okay. Give your honest feedback. If it's bad, tell them it's bad and give them suggestions on how they can always improve themselves. Because as a team leader, your main responsibility is to make sure your members get a proper development out of that. So as an LCP, my responsibility is to make sure my LCVPs get a development. And the LCVP's responsibility is to make sure the team leaders get a development. And the team leader's responsibility would be to make sure your members get a development. So that's why giving proper, honest feedback is very important. And then finally, reward and recognition. That is when a person does a good job, you have to appreciate them. So I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the post we put up on the WhatsApp group, the member of the month, the Actioneering best engaged members, things like that. It's important to acknowledge your members when they do something right. That can be something like very simple, like putting a message on the group, good job, someone. Really appreciate the hard work you have been doing. Something like that can go a long way. All right. All right. So next we're going to move on to tracking. So in the industry, or say the professional industry, there's basically two main ways of tracking a team. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of the first one, which is KPIs and MOS, which stands for Key Performance Indicators and Measures of Success. And yeah, you guys should have heard of this. But if you haven't, a key performance indicator is basically a metric that will track your members. It's something that can be measured. So for an example, in ISEC, a sign up or a realization or approvals, those would be a key performance indicator, right? And those fall under two categories, which is lead measures, and which means it's very quick feedback. You do something one day, you see the results the next day. An example for that would be a sign up where you do a stall or something inside university, and the same day you can see a sign up coming up on Expo, like that. And then a lag measure is something you perform a task, but it takes a long time to see the results out of it. Like for example, a realization, you call an EP, you interview them, then you have to send them the documents. That entire process takes a long time. They have to book a ticket, and then when they come to Sri Lanka, they get realized. or when they go abroad, they get realized. That's a very long process. It takes more than a month to finish it. So that's why it's called a lag measure. It takes a long time and the results are lagged. Right. And your KPIs you should be setting on a recurring basis. It can be like weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually, depending on how you feel is appropriate for your team. So for example, inside the EB, we are using a monthly system. Every month, everyone gets new KPIs and they have to perform according to that. But in most companies, what they use is quarterly systems. Every 3 months, they get new KPIs and they work according to that. Right. So the advantage of having short base or short frequencies for the KPIs is that basically it's very time consuming. Every week you would have to go back and analyze the KPIs and put in new ones. And since you're working with a very short timeline, it's difficult to analyze or measure results as well because you need a long period of time to get proper data, right? And so that's the advantages and disadvantages of using short frequencies. And then for longer frequencies, the problem is that it takes a long time to identify a problem. So for example, let's say the NetMe's KPI would be to get signups. So she has a target of 100 signups to get in 6 months. And if the KPIs was set for 6 months, we wouldn't understand that something was wrong until the 6 months are over. So like that. If we take 6 months to identify something's wrong, that's a big issue. But if we set it monthly, it only takes 1 month to identify that something is not working well. Yes, and then of course the measure of success is the value you can give to a KPI, and has to be a numerical value. So you can see the table in the corner. An example for a KPI is signups, and the measure of success would be 80. And then for KPI being approvals, the measure of success would be 12. This is just an example that you can take. Right. So every week or every month or however you do, you put a new target. Let's say your target is to get 50 signups. And then at the end of the month, you analyze and see whether he or she hit the target or not, like that. And then the next system that you use, or that's mostly used, is called OKRs. This, I think the people that came to NLDS might have heard. This is called objectives and key results. So how this works is there's two things, objectives and key results. And each person gets around between 3 and 4 high-level objectives. These are usually like not measurable, they're just phrases. For example, increasing BD revenue would be an objective of the person in the business development team. Yes, something like that. And then each objective can be divided into the key results, which can be measured. So key results are basically activities that you can do to achieve your objective. So for example, increasing BD revenue, some activities would be taking cold calls, going to company meetings, and designing proposals, things like that. That's an example. Yeah, so they can be measured, and you can give a target for each key result, and you can analyze your target at the end of the period. You can see how much of your target you have actually hit in your key result. And the important thing about OKRs, or objectives and key results, is that you don't plan to hit 100% of your target. If you actually hit 100% of your target, it means your target was too easy or it was set too low. So you should be setting a target, so you will be hitting around 70 to 80% of it. So that means you have set a proper target and you have performed well. So out of these systems, what you can use is up to you. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages. But what we use within the executive board is the KPIs and MOS system, because that is much easier to understand and easier to implement as well. Cool. And yeah, so this is the tracker that we use inside the executive board for KPIs and measures of success. I'm not sure if you guys can read this, but if you can go to your relevant VP and see how he or she is performing. Yeah, so as you can see, the KPIs, they can change from month to month, and the targets can change from month to month depending on the situation. So for example, in March, we have a lot of exchange number related targets, but in April, we changed that because we do not expect to do a lot of exchange numbers in April because of the current situation. Right, so you can see every month, at the beginning of the month, we set the KPI. Then at the end of the month, we set the KPI and the measure of success. And at the end of the month, we see how much they have achieved and how much they have not achieved. Yeah, so you can see the color scheme is basically to identify how well the relevant VP or LCP has done. Cool. And then some important things about tracking your team. It's important that you set, if you're using the KPI system, set realistic measures of success, things that you can actually do. If it's something that you cannot do, let's say, for example, Sandesh's target is to get a certain number of people to an LCM. If I put the target as 200 people, which is not possible because we don't have 200 people inside the LC, that doesn't make sense. So you have to set realistic targets. And then every month or whatever system or whatever frequency you decide, you have to go back and talk to your members and see what they have hit and what they have missed. And your KPIs, they can change from month to month. So for example, you can see Tiagas in January, she has IR meetings, and then by March the IR meetings KPI has gone because that's not relevant in March. So keep your KPIs dynamic, and yeah, you can change them from month to month or however often you wish to. Right. And if any targets are missed, so you can see a bunch of reds here. You can see why those targets were missed and try to figure out so why they were missed, and make sure those same targets are not missed the next month and you don't make the same mistakes again. Yes, and then also your tracker that you use to track your team, you recommend that you keep that public to your team so that everyone can see how everyone else is doing. So this particular tracker, everyone inside the executive board has access to it, and they can go through it and see what's going on. Right, and another thing I do it. So for example, not every person can have KPIs. So for example, Hasini is a LCVP finance. She does not have any KPIs because it's very difficult or next to impossible to put a KPI for a LCVP finance. Cool. Yes, and yeah, keep your trackers public. And once you set a KPI members, do not change them under any circumstance. So even though the KPIs for March were like approvals, which is not possible due to COVID, we didn't change them because if you change them, that becomes an excuse or like a slippery slope to make more changes in the future, and yeah, that is not good. Yes, and as I said before, it's your responsibility to make sure your team gets a good experience, and yeah, that's why we do this, to make sure that everyone understands their role in the team and that everyone will be performing and there will be no slackers. Yes, all right. And next up is meetings, and Sandeshi will lead this part.
All right, so hi guys. So the meetings part is important because you can do everything that you can follow up to what Kanil taught you guys. But meetings is the part where you make the members aware of what's happening and things like that. So this is very important. So why we need to take meetings is because one thing, it's an opportunity to reflect on past performance as well as to plan future performance. So basically, once you measure, analyze, and report the performance, you need to the TL will have a good knowledge about what's going on inside the team, but the members might not have as much knowledge as the TL. So this is where you need to inform your members about the performance and maybe tell them if you're achieving your targets, if you're above par, if you're on par or below par, and talk about that. And then once you do that, you can talk about where you went wrong or what you did right or how you can improve for future performance, things like that. And this is also a safe space for sharing and feedback. Now, when I say sharing, it means everything. So ideas for innovations, ideas about solutions and problems that the members might have, everything. And when I say feedback, that's also feedback regarding each and everyone's performance or what they're doing, all the processes that are going inside the team, things like that. And this is also an opportunity for brainstorming and finding solutions. So obviously, when it's a meeting, it's let's say you're a team of 6 people. When you're having a meeting with 6 people, that means you're getting 6 different types of views on things. So it's very good for brainstorming and for finding solutions. It's better than you as a TL finding solutions alone. It's good that your members can give input as well. And like Kanil said, rewards and recognition is very important. So in meetings, you can utilize meetings to give that. It can serve as an R&R space where you can appreciate your members or maybe give a reward. If it's a physical meeting, you can give a reward if you'd like. And the most important thing, I cannot emphasize this enough, it's a touch point for relationship building. So this is where you can bond as a team. Even as an EB, when we take EBMs, that is EB meetings, we have a really good time, right? So those turn out to be productive, effective, and we have fun at the same time. So it's good for relationship building. All right, now we'll see what are the types of meetings that you have to do inside your teams. All right, so the first thing is the team meetings, and then you have one-to-one meetings. We'll first look at the team meetings, don't read the other part. The team meetings, I've put twice a month. So when I say twice a month, this doesn't mean that, you should do exactly twice a month. Now, this is what I mean by this should be like an at least amount. At least twice a month, you should do that. And if it's more than that, then that's good. But for example, I take team meetings with my PM team once a week. So that's like 4 times a month. Don't go over that because once a week is quite enough, and twice a month should at least happen inside your team. Now, before a team meeting, the first thing that you have to do is to set a fixed date and time. Now, this I mean not before every single team meeting. As soon as this session is over, if you haven't done this already, I recommend you to find talk about the availability of your members and have a fixed date and time for the team meeting. And once you do that, then before every team meeting, you need to decide your purpose. For every meeting, this is important. You need to decide the objective of having that meeting. And then you need to come up with an agenda. That is what you're going to talk about and what's going to happen in the meeting, right? And if you do everything that Kanil has explained so far, then you'll have an idea about the team performance. So tracking the team performance is very important. If you're not tracking it, then there's no use of having a team meeting. So that should be done beforehand. And then prepare necessary material. When I say prepare necessary material, that means PPTs, or if you want it to be sort of like a learning space, then videos and whatnot. And then if you're sending an email about the calendar invite, then everything that you need to prepare beforehand for the meeting should be prepared. And then during the team meeting, make sure that you review your team performance. That is, like I said, have they achieved their targets? Like as a team, just review the performance, see if they're discuss what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. If you're not achieving the targets, then where are you going wrong? What you should do differently? Things like that you can review. And then discuss problems and solutions. So if the team has problems about the process of things, like anything that the team can come up with, give them that confidence that they can always talk about the problems that they have. And once they do that, give the solutions that you can as a team leader. Don't be scared if you cannot give a solution right away. That's all right. You can just tell them, I'll just think about it and get back to you. And you can do so after the meeting. And also this can be a recognition space, like I said, for R&R. You can always, appreciate them for their hard work. And make sure that these happen twice a month for sure, because of the current situation of the country, this is very important. And then after the meeting, make sure that you share the outputs. That means like every meeting will have call to actions, right? So it's good, like you'll mention the call to actions in the meeting itself, but it's good if you can type and send them like a reminder, like these are the things that you need to do in typed form. And then, like I said, if you had like a solution that you needed to give after, then you can do that also. And then if you did give CTAs, like deadlines and things like that, you can follow up. Or if you gave a solution, you can follow up and see if that solution worked, things like that. So following up is also very important after the team meeting. And then after that, we have one-to-one meetings. These should happen at least once a month. Now, one-to-one meetings don't need to, it doesn't have to have a proper number. It can be taken as required. So basically, if your team members are asking you for a one-to-one meeting, if they're saying, okay, I need to talk to you, you can always give them a time and have a one-to-one, and that doesn't matter. So as many one-to-ones as possible, but definitely one should happen every month. All right, so you need to take one-to-ones with all your team members. If you don't, I think you know what one-to-one meeting means, but basically it's like a meeting between two people where the TL talks to a team member. All right. And then before a one-to-one meeting, I've mentioned take after team meeting. This is because it's like after your team meeting, this is important because the things that they can't tell inside a team meeting, they can do so in the one-to-one. So make sure that you take your one-to-ones after team meetings. For example, if you take it on the first of a month, Then the one-to-one meetings can happen after that, second, third, likewise. And then set expectations and agenda, just like any other meeting. Have an objective, tell them like these are the things that we need to, like, this is the purpose of having a one-to-one. You can tell me your problems, we can just review your individual performance, things like that, and have an agenda. And then track individual performance. Note that the team meetings are actually about team performance and the one-to-one meetings are about individual performance. So you need to know the individual performance as well. So basically you need to have an idea about how each member is performing. All right. And then prepare necessary material. Like I said, PPTs, anything you need for the meeting, you need to have it before the meeting. And then during the meeting, this is very important, enjoy the connection. So this shouldn't be like a formal meeting. This should be something like a very casual conversation. You can just start by, saying, okay, how's life, talk about general topics, and, set the mood, and make sure that they are in a very comfortable position with you where they can, open up to you about anything. And make sure to be attentive to what they're saying, and, be like a friend through your one-to-one meetings. And then review the individual performance, not the team performance, the individual performance, how they're doing. You can talk about strengths, weaknesses. This is the place that you can give constructive criticism the most, because it's just your team member and you. And then here they can talk about problems that they can't talk about in front of other team members. So it could be personal problems or any other problems inside the team. So this is where you need to talk about those things and give solutions. Make sure that you establish that connection where they can trust you as a TA, so that they can tell you everything. All right. And then after after the one-to-one meetings, just like the team meetings, you need to share the output and follow up. So these are the two types of meetings that you need to do. These are compulsory according to the frequency that I've given. So if you do these right, you will have a successful team experience. So that's all.
All right, cool. Thank you, Sandeshi. Right, so that's about it for team meetings. And yes, so that's the end of the session. But before we finish, I want to show you guys something about performance management and tracking. So you guys might know, as an LC, one of the main projects we are running right now is actioneering, what we're doing right now. So it doesn't make sense if we just do it whenever we feel like it or however we feel like it. It's important that whatever we do, we measure how we're doing, and if you're not performing as well as you expected, we change our system so that it can be better. So that's why for the TLs, we put out feedback forms to get out, understand what we're doing wrong so that we can improve ourselves. And so I will show you guys the tracker that we use inside the executive board for actioneering, so you guys can get a proper idea of what we're doing. Yes, you guys can see my screen. All right. Yeah, so this is the tracker that we use for actioneering. Every session we have a plan, and we plan what we're going to do, and we take note of how many people attend for those sessions, so that in case we see a drop in attendance, we know there's something wrong and that we have to change something. Right. Then we also track, as you can see here, the attendance of our members in both these sheets. And then, yeah, we have a proper dashboard to understand whether we're doing well or we're not doing well. Yes, I'm not gonna take you guys through this much, because I don't think it's that important that you guys understand how we're doing tracking inside actioneering. But this is just to show you guys that there is a value in tracking things. Yes, so we are doing this. It's your responsibility to track your projects and your systems as well. Yes, all right. So that's the end of the meeting. So we'll go through a very quick call to actions. Yeah, so Google and find out more about how to implement KPIs and measures of success, because I only showed you guys one slide. That's not going to be enough to understand, because it's a very complicated or a very detailed process. I recommend you guys go back after the session, use your time to Google and find out more about this. Yes, and then for inside your own team or inside your own project, create your performance management system so you can understand how well you are doing, and create your trackers for your team. And right after this meeting, if you haven't done it already, as Sandeshi mentioned, set a fixed time and date for your team meetings and one-to-ones. Cool. And yes, so I want to end this session with this particular quote, which is, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So whenever you're trying to make an argument or when you're trying to talk to someone, make sure that anything that you say, it's backed up with data. So for example, I told you guys a while earlier that we are the best local committee in ISEC Sri Lanka right now. That's not something I just said because I wanted to make myself feel better or to make you guys feel better. That's something we have done data collection and analysis on. That's something we have found out that we are the number one entry. Yeah, so stuff like that, you have to back up with your data. And that's not just in ISEC. Anything you do in life, make sure when you're trying to make a point or you're trying to convince someone to take your suggestions or do something, that you back up with the proper statistics or proper facts and proper data. And yes, go with that. All right. And with that, thank you all of you guys for attending the session. And yes, be responsible and stay safe.